Hey there, happy Sunday, everybody. Tim from Alpha Trading coming at you with this week's market overview and stocks to watch for trading and investing. Let's see. Let's start out with what we've got coming up next week in terms of the economic calendar. We've got a few things in the economic calendar that could move the markets. We've got manufacturing PMI, ISM, construction spending, weekly jobless claims, ISM non-manufacturing, and then of course the big jobs number on Friday. So those are some things that could impact the markets coming up on the economic calendar. In terms of stocks with earnings, we've got some names that I think are of interest coming up next week. Palo Alto, I think, is one that I maybe keep an eye on. I've got a few others in this week's list, but I think the big deal is going to be the tariffs and negotiations with China. Appears like we're getting some headlines here that talks between China and the U.S. they're having a difficult time scheduling. So. We'll see. We'll see how this plays out. Last week we got a little bit of a relief rally. Indexes held up fairly well, but in my mind there are still some signs of reason to be cautious out there. So I remain on the yellow flag has been raised, and I remain cautious heading into this week. I did find it a little bit interesting that the gold pulled back and some of the miners pulled back last week. Not a total surprise because we were at an area of resistance. Everybody and their brother seems to be was talking about gold and miners. So we'll see if this pullback continues this week, or if maybe we find some support and consolidate a bit before stair-stepping higher. All right, so let's take a look at some individual indexes. IBB, continues to be below this trend line. It does seem to be trying to hold on to this potential area of price support here, but we're below the 50-day, we're below the 200-day, and we're below this trend line. So I still have concerns about the IBB. The IWM, we did not break below this trend line right here, but we're making some lower highs and lower lows in the IWM, and I think that's concerning. Also below the 50 and the 200-day moving average, so a little bit of concern there with the small caps. IYT transportation did get a little bit of a bounce last week up into the 200-day, but we are finding that, at least for now, to be some resistance. So again, we're making what appears to be a series of lower highs and lower lows. So we'll see what happens this week if we wind up making a lower low and breaking below this trend line. I think that would be problematic. JNUG and Nugget, so we pulled back last week along with gold, right? But we are coming to an area where maybe we find some support. So maybe we find some support. We get a little bit of a bounce out of gold and some of the gold miners. So I think it's worth having that on your radar. These are the levered ETFs for that space, and I think maybe we keep an eye on that for potential trading opportunity. But they have had big runs, right? They've had very big runs. So I'm just looking for a short-term trading opportunity, not looking to go real long for an extended period of time in either one of those. QQQs below the 50-day moving average. We keep testing this trend line here. Let's see what happens next week. It does appear as though we're trying to hold this area of price support. We break below 180. I think that is a problem. I think potentially we come down, we test the 170 area, but we'll see how it plays out. SMH, right? Also trying to hold on to this trend line. Did manage to get back and close above the 50-day moving average. That is somewhat encouraging. Uh, if we break below this trend line, then I think we're looking at a potential 200-day moving average test. And if that doesn't hold, then I think we're coming back down to test this $100 area. But SMH is still, to me, looks guilty till proven innocent. S&P 500 up into the 50-day moving average and really trying to hold this trend line as support. We'll see what happens next week. TVIX, UVXY. If the markets do roll over, let's see how we open on Monday after these tariffs going into effect, and now difficulty with setting up a September meeting between China and the U.S. Let's see how we open up, but would not be totally shocked if we saw some weakness, and if we see some weakness, there could be some trading opportunities in TVIX and UVXY, expecting some increased volatility. USO pulling back, still in a downtrend. Energy space, even though I think it is probably a deep value space, is still a very difficult space to get involved with. It just looks like, we'll look at that in a minute, but it just looks like a very tough space. So keep an eye on oil. I mean, if we can break over this trend line with some authority, maybe that gives a lift to the energy names. Aerospace and defense, arguably one of the stronger sectors out there over the last, for the last little bit here, and at an area of potential resistance. But this one looks, this sector looks pretty darn good. We've come down, we've tested this trend line a few times, pierced below it, but we manage. I mean, it looks like we're in consolidation mode here for aerospace and defense. Home builders actually look somewhat decent here, consolidating back above the 50-day moving average, but still not all that excited about the home builders. I mean, it does look fairly constructive here. Might need more time to consolidate. Building materials broke below this this trend line, broke below the 200-day. Did have a decent little bounce last week. Still below the 50-day moving average, and it does appear as though we are kind of trending lower, right? We've got these lower highs and lower lows. Let's see what happens here. But still, I think guilty till proven innocent. XLE, like I said, could be a deep value play. It's been a very tough sector to try and find the bottom on. Did have a little bit of a bounce, but still not a very good looking trend here. It looks like making lower highs and lower lows. So see if that trend continues. XLF did manage to hold the trend line and the 200-day moving average, but still kind of looking like a bear flag formation there on the daily. Industrials held on. It did manage to get back above this trend line and back above the 200-day, finding some resistance at the 50-day. XLP, consumer staples, does kind of look like it's consolidating here. Might need more time to consolidate, but still have a pretty nice looking upward channel here on consumer staples, considered a safety trade and could be a sector to keep an eye on. Healthcare, trying to hold on to the 200-day moving average, did manage to reclaim this trend line, but looking like a short-term downward trend on healthcare. Consumer discretionary, trying to get back above the 50-day moving average, trying to hold on to this trend line, did pierce it, managed to reclaim it. Actually, consumer discretionary looks somewhat constructive. Let's see if this 50-day holds and if this trend line can hold. Probably a decent sector to keep an eye on. XOP, oil and exploration, continues to look terrible, right? It's definitely in a pretty clear downtrend. And then retail, which did have, had some companies report some decent numbers, got a nice little bounce, but still kind of looks like a bear flag to me on retail. So I'm still looking at the markets as, guilty till proven innocent. I think this is time to be cautious. And that doesn't mean you can't dip your toe. If you want to start to build out a position, I just would not be, especially for long-term holds or swings, I would not be going in with full size. Identify areas of support and resistance. Maybe look for your areas where you want to start to dip. And that's that. All right, so this week I decided to give everybody the full list of stocks to watch that are on my radar, including the ones that I would just typically send out for the pro members. And it's a pretty decent sized list, so we're going to head right into it. So ELTK, this had a very nice bounce on Friday with some good volume. I did not see anything specific. Hold on a second. I didn't see anything specific for this pop. So big pop, they have earnings on the 4th. So that would be on what? Wednesday? Thursday? Wednesday. All right, so Wednesday they have earnings. Maybe this gets a red to green type move. Heading into earnings, I probably would not hold this through earnings. It pulled up into an area of potential resistance. It closed really strong. But if this thing pulls back to say 540, 550 or so, maybe that's a spot to take it for a little bounce play heading into earnings. And then if after earnings they report a really good number, could be an opportunity then as well. But worth keeping an eye on. Small float. Let me make sure. Let me see here. ELTK. Just want to make sure. Let's see. ELTK has got 610,000 shares in the float. So under 1 million shares in the float. We've had some big runners with low floats lately. This one could get some follow through. Worth keeping an eye on for a trading opportunity. INSG, full disclosure, already own this stock. I've been building a position in it. I like it as a long-term hold 5G play, and had a nice pop on Friday off of some news that AT&T is going to start selling their product. So actually there are some concerns with this chart. The fact that the 50 crossed below the 200 day, we've got a death cross going on there. I was actually kind of hoping this thing was going to pull back to about the $2.85, $3 area to fully build out my position for a long-term hold. Got down to this 355 area, found some support, nice bounce. Let's see what this does. Let's see if we find some resistance here at the 200 day and maybe come back and retest that 355 area. See if it holds. If it doesn't hold, then I'm thinking about it pulling back to this trend line, and like I said, pulling back to potentially around the three and change, or 288 to $3 range to build out my full position. But I like this one as a 5G play. I think the news was pretty good on Friday, and decent volume, so potential follow through on this. If you're just looking for a short term, maybe a 2-3 day trade, potentially pull back to $4 or so, see if that holds its support for a little bounce. This is really kind of the first day of the move, so thinking maybe this thing could have a 2-3 day run. Worth keeping an eye on that one for either a day trade or on a pullback, maybe start building a position for a long-term hold. CYH, one of the members brought this one up, I think on Friday, about insider buy CEO. Now this thing has had a pretty big move. The CEO bought 1.2 million shares at $1.99. So what I like about the look of this is that it broke this trend line here, right? It's flirting with the $2, or it broke over the $2 howler. It's back above the 50-day moving average, but as I said, third day of the move, so maybe look for it to pull back to the 225 area. Look for that to hold as support. So I'm looking for some kind of a flag formation. This could be a swing or opportunity. Let's see what it does. It's getting a little extended. Could it have another one-day pop, or possibly, right? But it is getting a little extended. Third day of the move. It's piercing the upper Bollinger Band, but worth keeping an eye on this for a trading opportunity. Warm. All right, so look, this is a penny stock, and actually these guys just looks like they're going to increase the amount of shares, I think, from 350,000 to 500,000 shares, or maybe no, 350 million to 500 million shares, some crazy number. I think it's got an interesting looking setup here, just for a trading opportunity. Got a little bit of volume on Friday. I don't know why my volume's not showing up here. There we go. Got a little bit of volume on Friday. 2.5 million shares traded hands. It's had some pretty nice moves, and it's near an area of potential price support. So I'm just looking for maybe a little scalp in this thing, up to 6 cents. Just a little trading opportunity. If they have some news, they've got, I looked into this company, they've got quite a few potential decent sized contracts that if they actually announce getting one of these contracts, or actually announce the funding was available for one of these contracts, could get an interesting bounce. Could be a good trading opportunity. I think that the moment that this thing has a nice bounce, they're probably going to do an offering, but I think it's at least worth keeping an eye on this thing just for the technical setup, and if it gets some volume, maybe it presents a trading opportunity. IDSY, so this one has had some pretty decent insider buys. Potential double bottom, had a nice little pop on Friday, broke over this trend line. Looking for a potential red to green, pull back to the 520 area, $5 area, and then I'm looking for it to maybe go up into this $5.80 to $6 range. Could be a day trading opportunity. Small float, 9.7 million shares in the float. Doesn't trade a lot of volume, traded 161,000 shares, but I kind of like the look of this one, and I like the insider activity. CEO bought 20,000 shares, not a huge amount, but 20,000 shares between 515 and 559, and 10% owner bought 300,000 shares, 518 to 603. So you've got some insider activity within this price range. You've got a potential double bottom on the daily. Got a little volume on Friday, a little break over this trend line. I think it's worth keeping an eye on for potential follow through. WTER, another one that was brought up by somebody in the room on Friday, testing the $2 holla. Now this has already had a 4-day move. This is an area of potential resistance. Looking for maybe it to pull back into the 870 to 170 to 190 range. Maybe we flag out a little bit here, but pretty nice little trend line break, longer term trend line break on this one. Potential follow through. This is an area of price resistance, so maybe we consolidate here, build out a flag pattern, and then we break. And I'm looking for it to come up and test 250 or so, test that 200-day moving average. Could be a nice little short-term trading opportunity there in water. SONO, recent. This is a fairly recent IPO. At an area of price resistance, actually had a nice little run, pulled back, and then popped again on Friday. Looking for it to take out the $15 hollow with some conviction. Potential day trading opportunity, maybe a higher risk swing there, but looking for a red to green on this one. Maybe pull back into the $14, $13.90, $14.20 area as potential entry, and see if we can take out the $15 hollow with conviction. PRTS. So got to tell you, I had a limit buy-in on this one at 99 cents. It didn't get filled. Had a trade plan I put out for the pro members on this, and I did not get a fill, but it had a fantastic move from $1 up to $1.50. Now this is an area of potential resistance. There's been a lot of insider buying in the 107 to 126 range. I'm looking for this to maybe pull back and test what was acting as resistance as support. Down, pull back to a buck 30, buck 35, somewhere in that area could be an interesting spot to consider taking it. A lot of the auto parts names have been having some decent moves. The sector itself, I think this one is worth keeping an eye on a pullback to 130. It would be a higher risk swing or maybe longer term hold consideration for me on a pullback to this 130 area, but definitely on my radar. If it takes out 150 with conviction, could set up intraday for a scalp opportunity. But like I said, it is a bit extended here. So what I'd really like to see is I'd like to see it either consolidate and work this off over time, or see a pullback. So we'll see what happens over the next week or so. TEN. So not a great looking chart, actually pretty darn ugly chart. But insider buys, and the first insider buys in a while in TEN. CFO, CEO, directors bought about 95,000 shares in August. This thing potentially, you've got a double bottom on the daily, got a little bit of a pop on Friday. I'm not sure when these guys report earnings or if they've already reported earnings, so you got to make sure you check that out. But if you back this out to a longer time frame, even longer, all right, this is an area of potential price support that it is currently sitting. Now, if it breaks this area of support, it can go significantly lower, right? It's been into the buck and change area. Big company, actually. I think about 80,000 employees, pretty big company, got some new products that are coming out. Stochastic starting to curl up. You're at an area of potential support. This could be a swing opportunity. If you get a trend line break, a long-term trend line break, could be a day trading opportunity, looking to go maybe test the 50-day 50 EMA up to the $10 hollow, right? So I think you've got a pretty good area to trade against, $8 or so as your, below $8, $7.75, something like that as your stop. It's got an interesting look. I think it's worth keeping an eye on. That's another one that's in that auto parts sector. USX. Trucking company or truck in the trucking space. Insider buys, 20,000 of them, 383 to 342 or 342 to 383 range. Now this one has already had 4 days of a move and at an area of potential resistance. Maybe pull back to 380 or so. 360 to 380 could be an interesting area for potential entry. Not sure. Let's see. Hold on a second. These guys already reported. Looks like. Or no. Not sure when these guys report actually. It's got kind of an interesting look. It's bumping up against this trend line. If it can take that out, could be an opportunity for a trend reversal. Looking for a test up into about the 640, 650 area. But might need a little time to consolidate. TXMD, another beaten up biotech that has had some insider buying. Actually, I was watching this flag pattern for almost all of last week, and it broke that trend line on Friday. It looks like it wants to test the $3 holla, maybe red to green continuation. Looking for it to go back up and test this 332 area as resistance. If it can take that out, I think maybe the second target would be $4. But some decent insider buying, 293 to 334, roughly 160,000 shares. It broke this trend line here, consolidated nicely, and now maybe trying to make another move higher. Worth keeping an eye on TXMD. INOV, consolidating very nicely right below the $17 holla, rising 50-day, rising 200-day. Got a nice cup on the daily time frame. This is a big spot. If it can take out $18, I think. Hold on, I just want to make sure I'm not. Nope, 18 is not all-time highs, but pretty big area of potential resistance. If it takes that out, you can take out 1870 or so. You can get a real nice move on this INOV. So worth keeping an eye on that one. Biotech, right? So a little bit higher risk, especially for a swing. But break over 17, maybe there's a day trading opportunity there. mRNA was in, I think, Barron's. Kind of got a reverse head and shoulders pattern here. Potential flat top breakout over 16. Take out this trend line. Looked like a positive mention in Barron's. We'll see how this reacts on Monday, but looking for it to take out $16 with conviction. Could be a day trading opportunity there. SB, they report earnings, I think, Tuesday after the close, maybe. Flirting with the $2 holla, looking for maybe a long-term trend line break, pop up into the $250 to $283 range is what I'm looking for. If these guys have good earnings and give a good guide, but you do have the golden cross that just occurred, right? We got the 15 or the 50 that just broke over the 200-day. Now, if we can break that trend line, maybe we get something going here. It is up heading into earnings, so if the earnings disappoint, that may set us up for a pullback here, where this trend line actually acts as resistance. NSSC, this stock, I got to tell you, I own this stock when it was in the pennies, and I did okay in this stock, but I haven't looked at it in a long, long time, and apparently I missed a huge run. Kind of disappointing, but this thing is testing, looks like all-time highs. Hold on a second. Yeah, It's testing all-time highs, blue skies. So maybe a potential, short-term swing trade opportunity on a break over 35. Uh, don't know when these guys report. Hold on. These guys report September 3rd, actually. So they report this upcoming week. So looking for maybe a breakout over 35 with strong earnings and a good guide. And if they disappoint, maybe look for an area where they pull back to potential price support, somewhere like $29, 50-day moving average. Looks like you got some potential price support in that area, but worth keeping an eye on. NSSC next week. ITI. I've been watching this one consolidate. Now these guys did a capital raise. I think it was for no. That's not this one. It's a different one. This one has just been consolidating. It looks like 5 is acting as good support. Looking for a break over 550 with conviction. Test that trend line right around $6. Take out that $6 holla. Potentially up to about $6.50 or so. That's a pretty decent move from where it currently sits. Actually, I'm considering taking this one on a swing, on a pull to this 496 area, if that can hold the support. 490, I think, could be an interesting spot. Pulls back to the 200-day. That could also be an interesting spot. But I'm looking at a potential swing in ITI. It trades pretty thin. Right, 150,000 shares traded on Friday, but I like the daily setup on this one. It's got a reverse head and shoulders pattern. This 550 area has definitely been an area of resistance, but if we can take that out with conviction, I think you get a nice little trading opportunity out of ITI. AGLE, Biotech name, nice looking setup on the daily here. All right, I think these guys might have some news. Potential news coming up. They might have a catalyst on the horizon. So I like the look of this thing right here, the way it's consolidating right here by all the moving averages, 50, 200 day. Looking for a break over 8 with conviction. I think maybe you get a retest up into the $9 area. Trades super thin, 36,000 shares. So you need some volume in order to trade this, but worth having on the radar just for that technical setup there. APPS, full disclosure, I own it. I've been trying to own more, but it's really not cooperating. This thing just is flagged out, and now it looks like it wants to try and test the $8 holla. I would love to add to my position on a pullback to say $6, 580. That would be ideal for me. It's a long-term hold play. I just have lottos now. I've been in this thing for this entire run, and I've been wanting it to pull back to be able to add more. I think it's still a very compelling story, and on an opportunity to add to my swing or to the long-term hold to the lottos, I'd love it to pull back to this $586 area. For a trading opportunity, short-term trading opportunity, a break over 8 could be interesting for APPS. I think the next area of long-term resistance somewhere around $9 or so. So I think worth keeping an eye on APPS. If the markets roll over, I hope it takes that one with it. All right, Tuffin. So these guys, I think, report earnings this week. Let me take a look and make sure. Hold on. Tuffin. Yes, they report actually Tuesday before the open. So not a great looking daily here. You've been in a bit of a downtrend for a while here, but it's flagging out right at this area of potential price resistance, right? So if they report a good number, give a good guide, I'm thinking we break out of this flag, we break this trend line, maybe we get a pop up into $20 or so, 20, 22 bucks, somewhere in that area. I mean, we're going to know Monday morning if this thing's gapping up or gapping down. If it comes back down to this 1550 area, maybe that acts as price support, a little double bottom, but at least worth having on the radar. BHAT, flirting with the $3 holla, recent IPO. I think this one looks like it's kind of basing. Looking for a break over 310 with conviction for a short-term trading opportunity. Think maybe you can get up into the $3.60, $4 area. Worth having that one on the radar if it gets some volume. SCWX, these guys report, SecureWorks reports Thursday before the open. Is flirting with the $12 holla, nice round number rolls, flirting with this trend line. Maybe it doesn't do anything until after earnings, but if they report a decent earnings number, maybe we can break this trend line. It's going to have some resistance at about 1350, 1450 or so. 1450 is a pretty big spot. That could be, 1350 be your first target, 1450 your second target, and stop below 11 bucks. But let's see if this gets some action heading into earnings. I wouldn't hold it through earnings. It is in a downtrend. You got the 50 below the 200 day. Just looking for a potential reversal if these guys report a good number. ATEC, this thing has been stair-stepping higher. It's at an interesting spot of potential support, $5. You got the 50 day. You've got this trend line that could be acting as support. Now we could have a double top up here. If this trend line fails, then maybe this upward trend is over in the near term. But if this holds, I think potentially we get a nice pop and go back up and retest those recent highs in the 1630 area. So maybe worth an opportunity. I mean, there's been some insider buys between 4 and 450, right? 100,000 shares. So they did an offering recently at 460. That priced at 460. So there's no threat of an offering because they just did one. So interesting looking setup. Looking for it to break over this trend line. Could be interested in maybe dipping my toe at $5 or 490, somewhere in that area for a swing, higher risk swing. Egan is a low float name that had an amazing run a while back, and it's just been getting crushed since. And looking for, I think these guys have earnings. Oh, they have earnings Tuesday after the close. If they report a good number, maybe we can break this downward trend that we've been in and reclaim the 200-day moving average. But we do have a death cross here as well. If they disappoint, I would be looking for an area of potential price support somewhere around 550 or so. But it depends on what they have to say with their earnings. Could be an interesting swing opportunity on a pullback to an area of support, provided they have good earnings and guidance. That's it. I mean, it's not a good looking setup here on the daily. They just happen to have earnings. It's a low float name. If they report good earnings and give a good guide, then maybe we break this trend line, break this downward trend that we've been in. AVEO, I think they have some data that's due sometime in the near future. If this thing has been basing, consolidating for quite a while here, if they have news that is positive, maybe this gets a nice little pop. Day trading opportunity is what I'm looking for in AVO off of news that's really about it. Work. So, this was a highly anticipated, this is Slack, highly anticipated IPO that has not performed all that great. They're reporting earnings on, where is it? Oh, Tuesday or Wednesday after the close. So we'll see what happens with the earnings, right? If we can break this downtrend that we're in, if they disappoint, who knows where the bottom would be on this. But at some point, if this gets, overdone to the downside, I could be looking to dip my toe for a longer term hold on work. GME, I put a trade plan out for the pro members on Friday. I think this is kind of, huge short interest in GME. Now, these guys report earnings on September 10th. It actually had a nice little move up into the 50-day, pulled back a little bit on Friday, put out the trade plan to take a starter at 390. I have revised that trade plan. I'm looking at maybe taking a starter at about 365, 350, somewhere in that area. And I might hold it through the earnings. There is a potential that if they disappoint, this thing will pull back and retest this 319 area, which I think is real close to all-time lows. Yeah, actually all-time lows. So we don't really have an area of potential support on GME. The guy that called the big short is actually long in this with a pretty sizable position, and I think maybe this could set up for a nice squeeze trade. So it'll be interesting to see how this stock performs ahead of their earnings this week or next week, but worth keeping an eye on this one for a higher risk swing opportunity. And this is actually kind of stepping out of my boundaries because I typically do not like to play retail, and this is one that I'm looking to potentially play. So keep an eye on GME. Coda. So Coda is one that I have just started building a position in, a very small position. This is in the aerospace defense industry. And I started building it as it was consolidating here on the 200-day moving average. It had an amazing run up to about $20, pulled back to, basically $10, was holding this 200-day, and I was looking at that as a potential area of price support. Started a very tiny position, and on Friday it broke down because they had announced that on Thursday that they filed a $100 million shelf. What I found interesting about that is, or what I like about this company is, they actually have positive cash flow. They don't have a lot of debt, and they've got some new products that are coming out. They're doing some things with NASA and the Navy. I really like the story here. It's not cheaply valued. So there is potential that this could come down and maybe test this 650 area where there could be some support. But the reason why this thing sold off was because of that shelf. They don't need to raise capital to pay debt. And they're not losing money. So really, why did they, to do a shelf, maybe they're looking at a potential acquisition. Maybe they're looking at doing a share buyback. Who knows? But it doesn't necessarily mean just because they did that filing that they're going to do it tomorrow. So I think if this thing sells off more, it creates a bigger opportunity for me to build out my entire position. I would love it to come down to $7, $6.50. I would look to get more aggressive in building my position. And that very well could happen. So we lost the 200-day. but I am looking to build out my position in Coda. All right, that is it. That is my full list of stocks to watch, I think, for the week. I'm still cautious on the markets. Let's see how we open up on Tuesday. Let's see how the markets react to this tariff stuff in China. Be cautious. Have a plan. Know your entries, know your exits, right? And your reason for taking the trade. If it's a long-term hold, if it's a swing or a day trade, stick to the plan. All right, that's it. I hope everybody out there on the East Coast is safe. I hope the hurricane does not do a tremendous amount of damage. But if you guys are in the path, I hope you're very, very safe. My prayers are with you. That's it. Have a fantastic rest of your day off, and I'll see you all tomorrow.